Welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Report. I'm Jarret Johnson. I'm joined by the Mighty Joe Yeager. Well, Mighty Joe, Texas Tech is 1-0. That's a fact. But, man, they were pushed to their limits. 52-51 in overtime against Abilene Christian. I think, obviously, like a week ago or so, we were talking about all these high expectations for the defense. And now they face, at least on paper, what would be a much stiffer test in Washington State. They're in Pullman. 9 p.m. Central Time, Saturday. And that game will be televised on Fox. But just overall, what do you think needs to happen? I mean, there's probably a number of things, but what's the first couple of things that come to mind in terms of what needs to happen for Texas Tech's defense in order to compete Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, it seems to me that particularly in the back seven, there was a lot of indecisiveness, a lot of hesitation, a lot of confusion, and when you got that sort of a frame of mind, it's difficult to be aggressive.
Yeah.
You're terrified of making a mistake, running yourself out of position, or, I don't know what to do here, and so you're kind of, feet running in place, and you're not doing much of anything, and consequently, it looks like you're playing soft. Texas Tech has got to be more mentally prepared. I mean, this is the first time really since DeRuyter has been here that I've looked at that defense and said, man, they look disorganized and ill-prepared.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can't have that going up against Washington State. I mean, this is a dangerous offense. I mean, let's not make too much of it, but they've got a lot of explosiveness, a lot of speed. I like their quarterback. I wish Tech wasn't facing him this particular week, but it's a dangerous offense. And I mean, as bad as things were against Abilene Christian, if you're not right mentally and you don't know what you're doing more, then this could be kind of ugly. So they've got to get right mentally. They got to be prepared. Does that mean they simplify things a little bit, the schemes and the game plan a little bit to hopefully help these guys along? Maybe, but something's got to happen in that regard.
I'm glad you brought that up. I even asked DeRuyter that on Monday in the press conference. So it seemed like there was a lot of miscommunication. I mean, are you going to, simplify things so that everyone can get on the same page? And he gave me a coach speak answer, basically just they're looking at everything after that performance because it was so bad. But, I thought live when we were here at the Jones watching it that miscommunication was rampant. It looked like at times they were running different defenses depending on who it was in the secondary. Like somebody would be running man, and then the other side was running zone. Sometimes they were in cover two. Sometimes, and then in the rewatch, it confirmed it for me. And watching it on TV later in the week, there was several times where guys just released receivers thinking they had help, or they overcompensated and helped when they should have been the back end guy and they had help underneath and got burnt deep. So it was a little bit of everything. And there's a couple of guys I mentioned in the article. I'm not going to point it out on YouTube and everything, but there's a couple of guys that have to play better or they need to be replaced. It wasn't as bad as I initially thought, especially on the defensive line. I saw Amarian Banks really stood out to me that he was just controlling his guy most of the time. And there'd be either they were just lined up, incorrectly, like they'd shift, but one guy wouldn't shift with everybody and they leave a hole wide open. And that's stuff we used to see with previous defensive coordinators. Like you said, we haven't seen that with DeRuyter a lot. And that was really disappointing, but it also gives me hope that they played that poorly. There's a lot of room for improvement. Yeah. It's not like I was worried it was going to be, when I watched it again, it was going to be a talent problem. And I really didn't see that. I saw a problem with intensity. Like you said, guys looked timid because they did not know what they were doing. They didn't know what defense they were in the secondary. I thought Jacob Rodriguez, seeing it live, I thought, man, he didn't really have that good of a game. But watching it again, he played much better. Especially in the first half, ACU would have had a lot bigger plays. Believe it or not, would have put up more points if it wasn't for a couple of saving tackles he made. Very much like Rabbit was last year, where it's like, whoa, it's really good that he got that guy down or else. But that was last week. This week, like you said, Washington State's quarterback, I think 11 for 17 for 351 yards. I mean, so explosive. Now, Portland State. Here's one thing. Right. Washington State put up 70 points on Portland State, but they also gave up 35.
Yes.
So let's flip it. What do we need to see from Texas Tech's offense? We've talked so much about the defense and what they need to improve on and all that. But what did you like about what you saw from the offense, and what do they need to keep going or possibly change?
Yeah, I mean, and this may be sort of the same sort of deal with Washington State versus Portland State, Texas Tech versus a similar level of competition,
Right.
Abilene Christian.
Right.
That makes it very difficult to evaluate for sure. But, I mean, I was pleased with the offense. I really was. I mean, in just about every respect, except for one. Interior run blocking. I just did not see the push up front on a regular basis that I would have liked to have seen. I mean, occasionally it would happen and you get those guys on their heels and moving backward, but a lot of the time it was a stalemate up front. And, I think for this offense to really blossom and to take that next step forward, which they may have to do against Washington State because they're going to have to score a lot of points, I think.
You think so?
Yes, I think so. And so get those three guys inside. I've got to do a better job in run blocking. But, hey, everything. I thought Barron was absolutely terrific.
Yeah.
I thought he looked confident. He looked poised.
Yeah.
He looked
healthy.
like a veteran, healthy. Yeah, maybe that has something to do with it. He looked like a veteran quarterback.
He did.
And so I hope that can continue. If it can, if it does, then he's going to have a truly outstanding year. The receivers were as advertised.
Yeah.
It definitely looks like an improvement over last year, which is absolutely necessary. Hey, the tight ends, again, very good. Tharp blocking, and Conyers is a weapon.
Yep.
Very, very. He looks as fast as a lot of receivers.
Yeah, he does.
He's a threat. He's another weapon you have there. Taj was Taj, and he also, I think, looked quicker than I had seen him a lot in the past. He was having to bounce a lot of stuff outside, but he had the ability to bounce outside. And I mentioned in the game, boy, the guy's got really good feet.
Yeah, he does.
He can just sort of skip along through these little cracks and make something out of nothing. So overall, offense very, very good. And they're going to need to bring that sort of thing again against Washington State, I believe.
So on the injury report provided by Texas Tech, Taj was listed as questionable. I do think he's going to play. I don't know that for sure, but I do think he's going to play. But if he doesn't, I asked Coach Kidley how the offense could potentially change without him, and he said they would plug in Valdez and Dickey, and they would operate much the same. But I don't buy that. I think if Taj doesn't go, or if he's limited, look for Barron to air it out 50+ times. What do you think? How do you think the offense will change hypothetically without Taj?
Right. I think they would like to plug and play.
Yeah.
To plug in those two guys that you mentioned. And maybe that's what they're going to do initially.
Yeah.
And if those guys can get the job done, and it's a big if, we just don't know that much about them for the most part, really, in serious competition over extended reps. But if they can get it done, then the offense may not change too much. But I don't think that you can just sub any guy in for Taj Brooks and get the same result. I mean, the guy is a damn good running back.
Yeah.
One of the best in the country.
Yep.
And so there's going to be a drop-off there, and your ground game is just not going to be as effective. And so then I agree with what you're saying. You're just going to have to lean on that passing game more than you ordinarily would. And, that's not the worst thing, assuming that what we saw last week is an accurate indicator.
Yeah.
Then, I think Tech can win the game airing it out, potentially. So, that's kind of the way I look at it now. It's either going to be Taj in there and same thing that we saw last week, or if Taj is not in there, yes, the aerial attack is going to rise to the fore and is going to have to more or less win the game offensively for Texas Tech.
Yeah, a couple of things off your last couple of comments. One, Valdez, in rewatching the game, I don't really remember it live. He had a nice 5-yard run, his one carry, and then on the next rep, it was, I don't remember if it was RPO or just straight up play action, but he had to come across Bear Morton's face to pick up a blitzer, a free blitzer, and he didn't lay some crushing hit or something like that. It wasn't Emmitt Smith pass blocking back there, but he got enough of the guy so that Barron can make a good throw to Coy Aiken down the field, 20 yards down the field. If he doesn't get out there and at least get in that guy's way, Barron can't make that throw. He can't step into what was like a 20-yard throw. So that's been the big question with Valdez. That made me feel good to see that he recognized it. He made the play. And then in terms of the receivers, just talent-wise and ability, yeah, I mean, and throwing Conyers in the mix as well. I think even against Abilene Christian, we can see that they've improved. Josh Kelly, Caleb Douglas had a quiet, good game. He had the game-winning touchdown, but he also made some really nice blocks in the screen game. When I went back, I thought that live, but when I went back and watched it, I was like, whoa, okay, here's some physicality. Like, I feel like if they could get that on the other side of the football from like the DBs, like we saw from the receivers in blocking on the screen game and in the run game, then they may have something. Mason Tharp did it, and John Carlos Miller, who I think of him more as a receiving tight end. They both did a really good job blocking. Offensive line, especially in short yardage situation, there was one play where it was 4th and short. You got Taj Brooks, I mean, about as physical of a runner as you'll see in college football today, and all 5 of the offensive linemen got whipped. So that was disconcerting. I don't know if there's going to be anything they could do about that. So in Washington State, again, I don't know a ton about their personnel, but you're not going against Georgia's defense.
Oh, no.
So I did like that the offense looked. Now, don't get me wrong, they stalled out here and there. It was usually penalties. I think that's something they have to really clean up. Way too many false start penalties. Now, I don't know if I want to see a whole lot of Cameron Brown in the run game with how effective Barron's been. When they plugged him in, I get the idea in terms of bringing that element, but it also kind of disjointed the flow of the offense, and the offensive line kind of get messed up. Like the cadence was different, and so it cost them a couple of times. Let's just let Barron and Taj and Josh Kelly and those guys do their things. In my humble opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, sometimes you just get a little bit too cute.
Yeah.
And I know you want your Avery Johnson back there to do what he did against Texas Tech last year, but realistically, Johnson is a special talent as a running quarterback. It very much remains to be seen whether Brown is that good. And these guys, they've got enough on their plate.
Right.
With the basic package.
And 4 new offensive linemen trying to get used to each other anyways, by the way.
Yeah. So if you're changing things up, even kind of marginally, then at this point in the season, particularly when guys are still trying to get their feet wet, this can mess with guys' heads. And again, you get the sort of uncertainty up front that you already see on defense.
Yeah.
And you don't play well when you don't feel good about yourself and you know what you're doing. So I would agree. Probably put that in mothballs. You run it against the scout team.
Right.
You
keep working on it.
Get better and better. And then maybe, in the second half of the season, you actually can get something out of that.
Right.
But as for the time being, particularly when you're in any sort of a dogfight or a close game, you need to let that hang fire, I think.
I agree. So the over-under is, I believe, 65, which seems really low. That got my attention. Those guys in Vegas tend to know what they're talking about. So my score lowered. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it will come down to a final possession or two, maybe a big turnover late. And then also, Washington State's favored by 2.5 points, the latest line I saw, which basically says it's a coin toss game, but it's played in Pullman. So a couple of things to think about. Some trends. Texas Tech has started off seasons under Joey McGuire slow, and then by November played its best football. So I think this is a key game this season. You can win this game, start 2-0, come back home. You have North Texas, which at this point I'm not ready to say anything's a gimme.
No.
But at least you feel really good. Like you reverse the trend of struggling on the road. You reverse the early struggles trend with the 2-0 start, and you feel pretty good. But got to get that W, mind you.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I mean, look, after Abilene Christian, right now you get a sense that there's not a whole lot of good feelings circulating around the program. I mean, that caught everybody by surprise, not just us and the fans. I mean, it caught Joey McGuire, the coaching staff, the players. They didn't expect that. McGuire said as much.
Yeah.
And it was a bad surprise, not a positive one. So, I mean, they've got some bad juju floating around right now, and they want to dispel that.
Yeah.
I mean, Tech is the underdog, and Washington State not much.
Right.
They are the underdog. And there's a lot of people, like myself included to a certain degree, who feel like, man, that spread may be even a little bit too small.
Okay.
You know, if they were to get that win, it would really feel like, I think, almost an upset of sorts and maybe a surprisingly good result. And it really would improve the atmosphere around the program and get you moving in the right direction. You certainly feel a lot better about yourself going into North Texas and the rest of the season. So, you know, I agree. It's a critical game. I mean, if you have if you just completely, you know, lay an egg and lose by a lot of points up there in Washington State, then man, it's not going to be pretty around here, to say the least. So yeah, they definitely need to put a good performance together and get that W. At the very least, they need to be extremely competitive in this game. It does need to be, like you say, going down to that final possession. Any sort of a blowout type loss is not an acceptable outcome, and that's for sure.
All right, Mighty Joe. Great stuff from you as always. Thank you all for watching, and until next time.